While working on my goal of knitting 100 hats out of recycled yarn, a project which I described in this movie, I thought I'd try some ways of using I-cord, actually mock I-cord, as the hat hem. Mock I-cord is nothing more than a stockinette strip 3 to 8 stitches wide, but because of the nature of stockinette, it rolls itself tightly into something that looks just like a cord. You're looking at a clip from the mock I-cord movie that describes the process in more detail. This hat began with a 3-stitch I-cord. It looks cute, but that isn't enough width to stop the rolling of stockinette. So I finished this hat by going around the other edge of the I-cord, the one that did not begin the hat brim, with worm trim, and that worked great. You get a slightly different effect depending on whether you hang the I-cord with the purl side showing towards you as you hang it, or the knit side. Both are nice. Hanging with the purl side in view produces this effect. Knit side towards you produces this effect. Both curl in such a way that you're looking at the knit side on the outside of the hat, but the direction of the curl is either under towards the inside or up towards the outside, depending on your choice. Start by knitting your mock I-cord strip the length of the circumference that you want for the hat. Here are the typical average head sizes. There's a little bit of a judgment call in that some of us like our hats to fit exactly our head circumference, and some of us like our hats to have up to 2 inches of negative ease. Choose your length and then hang the edge, one long edge of the mock I-cord on the machine. Here I'm working the 3-stitch I-cord, but it would be the same for any width. Tuck your tool right in under the edge column of stitches when hanging. It is absolutely essential that each needle get its own unique space in the knitting. They cannot share. If they do share, you'll get a ladder in the knitting that's hard to fix. This isn't difficult because there are always more rows than we need stitches. You just have to mind what you're doing. You may either do the math and figure out how many needles to use, or just hang the cord as it falls. Both things usually work quite well. The mathematical way is stitch gauge times desired circumference. So if we want a hat 20 inches in circumference and we have 4 stitches per inch, we would hang on 80 needles. That's a likely bulky gauge. If we're on a standard and we're getting 7 stitches per inch, still wanting a 20-inch hat, we would use 140 needles. The brim is done. Now we have to knit from brim to crown, and it's just plain stockinette. I always knit back from the hung row by bringing the needles forward and knitting them back from hold. That just causes the machine to do a little bit less work and make it a little bit less likely that there's any kind of problem. Now we just knit straight to the top of the crown. This hem adds negligible length. Here are the typically preferred hat lengths. So simply multiply your row gauge by your choice of length and knit that many rows. In our example, we cast on enough for a 20-inch hat. That's probably a youth, a big kid. So they will probably need 7 or 7.5 inches of length because they sort of straddle the border between child and adult. For 7 inches, multiplying it times 6, a typical bulky row gauge, we would knit 42 rows. Multiplying by 10 to get a typical standard gauge row gauge would render 70 rows as our target. There's always some room for personal preference, and if you want to slouch your hat, add 2 inches at least. Snip the yarn tail and gather off the stitches on that tail. One quick warning, when hanging the I-cord, try not to do this. Do you see how the right hand prong did not go all the way under the edge column of stitches? It only went under one strand. If you allow that to happen, it will create an uneven spot where the crown joins the hat that's not as attractive.